You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is November the 20th, 2018. With you today is myself, Carl, and Thick Sagan.
Oh, that was, I don't know. How did you feel about that?
It felt weird. It felt wrong. It felt weird, and I didn't like it.
It felt weird for me, too. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. You said to try it on the show, try it live, and we did. There's no retakes, so can't take that back.
No, and shout out to Adam Lascaris for that suggestion.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, buddy.
Yeah. We probably won't go with that one. We'll see what we come up with in the future. The always wonderful Joel is not with us this evening. Things came up with him. He was not able to be there. We are trying to find out right now, with all that has been happening in the NHL, there are rumors surfacing that Joel has been fired. I haven't been able to find any truth to those rumors. Have you found any of that, Nick?
Unconfirmed at the moment. I've yet to hear back from my sources around the league.
Yeah, Drager's looking into it as we speak. We'll see. Joel's not on the Leafs, so Drager doesn't actually have that much information about it, though. So we will see what comes. But yeah, this is the week in a series of shows in which we have had coaches be fired. We had John Stevens get fired in L.A., Coach Quenneville in Chicago, and now two this week. We have two coaches in the last 24 hours that are no longer employed. So our condolences to Mike Yeo and Todd McLellan. But I think if you were to start to list off the places and the people that could be looking for jobs, those would be high up on the list.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of wild how it's happened now this year with all the coaches being fired compared to last year where none were fired at all. But I think it's funny because you would think that the kind of waterfall of firings would be triggered by other coaches who were released and are now on the market, but none of those coaches who were released are being hired by the teams who now have vacancies. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's been a lot happening with new guys coming in and, some being brought in for the organization. Let's start in Edmonton. Todd McLellan, you had to know that this would come eventually, mostly because Peter Chiarelli needs to blame someone else for his failures as a general manager. I to a degree, as much as I can feel bad for a coach, I feel bad for Todd McLellan. This is not on him. The team continually gave him a worse and worse product every single season to go out with and try to build a successful team. And that's what happens when you go out there. I thought he did a pretty good job. Last year there was some significant issues with their special teams, but aside from that, I thought Todd McLellan was a serviceable enough coach, and he is not the reason that this team is not doing better. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, a struggle for them. The last week they starting Saturday in Calgary and then against Vegas the other night. It's hard to look at that and be proud of it, but things had to change, and it's easier to fire one coach than Chiarelli and that entire management structure.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's kind of like a Band-Aid solution, though, right? You're not really getting to the root of the problem in Edmonton. I don't think any rational thinking person looked at that team and thought, Todd McLellan, that's the guy who they need to get rid of to turn things around. And frankly, I don't think that, I don't think that Ken Hitchcock is the solution either. I don't know what's going on in Edmonton with ownership and general management, but especially coming off the heels of that trade, which I know we'll talk about later, Chiarelli's not a good look for him. And he hasn't had a good look for a while, but somehow it still gets worse for him.
And management above him, like everyone in this is so deep into their own problems that Oilers management beyond Chiarelli, they're playing for their own jobs. So firing Chiarelli is like, well, how many general managers are you going to go through? How many times are you going to bring back the same people over and over again until, Daryl Cates is going to make some changes, but he's so in love with former Oilers that's not going to happen. So I don't see any reason why, Kevin Lowe and, it's not like you can, it's not like you're going to fire Wayne Gretzky for with his role with the team, right? You want a PR nightmare of being bad, fire your franchise's best player ever. It's not going to go well.
That would not go over well. I don't think anyone, how can you fire Wayne Gretzky?
Yeah. What you do is you hope that he quits on your team in the middle of August and leaves you without a coach. That's what you do. That's how you handle that situation.
Hockey fans have long memories, Wayne.
But that's kind of the issue in Edmonton, right? Like, there's no one there to fix it, because they're all the problem. And it's hard for me to look at and pick one individual that you look at and say, this is the guy that needs to go and needs to be replaced, because it's been such a struggle for so long. But you got to think replacing Chiarelli is a great place to start.
I would think so, because the moves that, the roster changes that this team makes every year are just laughable, I think, year after year over year. Every time a trade's made, it's like, well, Chiarelli lost.
Right.
You don't even need to see what the trade is. You just know he lost.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that. Since we're talking about Chiarelli and the manager, let's get into, because not only did he fire a coach, he also made a trade that, while, not as bad as many of the trades he's made in the past, is kind of an indicator of his struggles, because he traded off Ryan Strome for Ryan Spooner, a piece that the Rangers got in the Rick Nash trade last year. Ryan Strome, a piece that Chiarelli got in the Jordan Eberle deal a number of years ago. And so at the time, even that Eberle trade looked bad. And now if you were to look at that as a Eberle for Spooner trade, still looks bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish with this trade. I'll admit, I don't know these players that well. They're not really showstoppers to me, but they both have 2 points on the year so far. A center for a center. I don't see why this trade had to happen.
Right. It's a little shuffly of deck chairs to a degree.
Yeah, right. Is it more of a warning sign to the locker room? Hey, see, I'm not afraid to ship you out. I don't know. It's just such a weird move. Right. And you look at it, and Strome, 2 years, $3.1 million left. That was a deal handed out by the Oilers. And then going the other way, Ryan Spooner, also 2 years, $3.1 million left. So money is not an issue here. One's a UFA versus an RFA at the end, but that, numbers wise, fine. Spooner, I understand why the Rangers were willing to, looking to get him out of town, because even last year, at 26 years of age, could barely crack the lineup in Boston. Obviously, it's much easier to crack the Rangers lineup, but a quality playoff team, they traded him because you're not playing, right? We're paying you $3 million to sit on the bench most of the time. Understandable why he was moved. That's not the kind of piece that you look at and say, well, this is who we are going to be excited and proud of and bring in. It's the failure of Ryan Strome, quite highlighted by this trade, and certainly you could have forgotten. But when you then trade that asset away, it's really just hoping and praying that maybe a change of scenery is what these guys need. And obviously, so far we've seen 2 games with Ryan Spooner in Edmonton, and hasn't done anything to show that he's anything that is gonna change the Oilers' results. No, I can't imagine they were expecting him to walk in and score a hat trick in his opening night game. His box score is nothing in those 2 games.
Well, and even less ice time, almost a minute or more than a minute less in ice time than he was getting in New York. So, obviously a 2-game sample size is not the greatest, and you might not want to just throw a guy out there, but when you're only playing 11 and a half minutes a night, that's nothing to be too proud of. So, certainly Chiarelli and the Oilers, have some work to do. What do you think, if you were given clean slate to fix the Oilers, and you could have one move, what do you do?
Oh man, where do you start? I think it's like, I think you got to address the defense a little bit. Like Adam Larsson, I still don't see him as a top 2 guy. I think that could be upgraded. Top 2 right-handed defenseman is probably where I'd start. I'm also not a fan of their goaltending either. I think Cam Talbot has his stretches of games, but I don't think there's a ton of consistency there with him by any means. And
sorry to interrupt, but Todd McLellan came out hard against Cam Talbot after his performance last night, so that becomes irrelevant now. He put that game solely on Cam's shoulders, and that's obviously not the reason that he's gone, but coaching not happy with his performance.
No, what will be interesting, speaking of defense, is how defensive-minded Ken Hitchcock is as a coach. See what kind of systems he brings into Edmonton to see what he can do. I wish he'd grow his mustache back, though.
Yeah, I think everyone's a little bit better with a little Ken Hitchcock mustache, but I think that's a good choice as a coach to bring in, because he is someone that has come into team after team and almost seems like that stopgap coach, especially since he retires every single time he's hired by a team, right? Ken Hitchcock retiring is not a thing that you should trust at this point.
No.
But he does do well. He comes in and he gets that team solid. And Ken Hitchcock is a good coach, and arguably of players or of coaches available, I would say probably the best available right now. Because with Quenneville not saying he doesn't want to step into a role right now, Ken Hitchcock is a great addition for this Oilers team, and I think one that we'll see how it does. Now, does that what that means for the lines and the situations? I think as a guy who's coming in and doesn't have any sort of preconceived notions, his job is to win hockey games. And he no longer has, Ken Hitchcock doesn't care what anyone thinks, right? If you don't like the lines I'm putting out there, fire me. I'm in here to win games. I'm not in here to be your puppet. And so I think you're going to see some pretty different results and pretty different things. He's not going to placate to someone. If that's what they wanted, I don't see Ken Hitchcock having said yes to this role.
No, I don't think so either. And I think that life's about to get a heck of a lot harder for the players too, because he's notoriously a hard person. He's hard on his players. He expects a lot from them, and he's not going to go easy on them if they're not performing.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a good thing for a lot of these guys, and especially, I think it's a fantastic time to bring back up players like Puljujarvi, who they've sent down to the A, bring him up and be able to experience that and start to gain some of those abilities and work habits so that you can bring those forward. Yeah,
for sure. And I saw people not complaining, but kind of going on about how could you bring such a defensive-minded coach onto a team that has Connor McDavid? But I think McDavid is, he'll be fine. He's going to thrive in no matter what kind of system he's playing in. He's the best hockey player in the National Hockey League. He will be fine.
Oh, there's no chance. Here's the thing. If you play defensive-minded hockey, what that means is that you're coming back a little bit sooner. The great news is Connor McDavid has the ability to outskate anyone. So if he's coming out of his zone, he's going to be leaving the zone at the exact same time, and he'll just win any foot race. Him playing defensive-minded hockey is not an issue. The fact that you can maybe, settle back, have the puck, move it out of your zone safely, smartly, and carefully, that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think this will be a benefit to the Oilers. 2 weeks ago, I thought this team's actually looking respectable. There's a lot of flaws with them, but I could see these guys sneaking into a playoff spot, especially in the Pacific. And now I still think that. certainly some flaws, but Connor McDavid can fix a little bit of that, and I think Ken Hitchcock adds to it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their roster too. Their bottom six is pretty thin. They could probably use a little more depth on the bottom half of their roster, but I agree. I think they should be sneaking into the Pacific playoff race.
Yeah, and so we'll see what other moves, right? Because obviously Chiarelli fired a coach and made a trade this week. He is not afraid to shake things up. He's coaching or managing for his job. Before we get into the rest of what's happened this week, let's remind everyone about the Alberta Podcast Network's primary sponsor, the ATB Financial. And if you head to atb.com and atb.com/listens, you can find out some of the ways that ATB is working in the community to do things. atb.com is a great place because you can find out what they can do for banking, but also what they're doing. They're involved in the community, putting on so many events. They're supporting grassroots hockey. They're supporting pro hockey in Alberta. They're putting on clinics for coaches. So they're making coaches, players better, and all because of the people who use them. If you want to be a part of that, head over to ATB and switch banks. It sounds like a good idea. Mike Yeo, he could be looking for a new bank sometime because who knows? Maybe the bank that he's using is only in Missouri. And if that's the case, then he needs to find one somewhere else, unless he wants to stay in St. Louis. And I've never been to St. Louis. Have you been, Nick?
I've never been to St. Louis, no.
No, I've actually never been to the entire Midwest. I've been to like the East Coast, and I've been all the way up and down the Pacific, but never, and not even. I've been like the upper Northeast, so like Connecticut across to New York and Michigan. That's about it. I've really just framed it.
Would like Nashville count as the Midwest?
Yeah,
So I've been to Nashville.
there you go. I think that's next on my list of places I haven't been to go to.
Definitely worth it.
Yeah, that would almost did that for New Year's this year, but my Avalanche in Vegas won out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
So you're going to see them in Vegas.
yeah. They're I made our entire group reschedule so that we could see them on the 27th. Because I was like, hey, let's go down on the 28th, do New Year's, come around, and then I was like, oh, I should check hockey tickets, obviously. And the Avalanche are in on the 27th, so
That's actually amazing. The signs of a true
early.
fan.
Yeah, so we're all going down a day early.
Put some money down on the Knights.
Ooh, to hedge my bets. How many times do you think they have a fan of the opposing team walk in, which is probably a lot, and bet against their team? I like your ideas.
Hey, man. That's what you brought me in here for.
Yeah, to help me gamble appropriately.
Yeah. Not responsibly, just appropriately.
Just appropriate. Yeah, well, I'll be responsible with that. That's what Joel's here for. Joel's here to keep me responsible.
There you go.
Nick is here to help me do it appropriately. So, but Mike Yeo, he is out as the coach of the St. Louis Blues, and I think, at least for me, and I think you as well, he was one that we really saw coming. He, actually, he was the replacement for Mike Hitchcock once upon a time. So
Ken Hitchcock, yeah.
Or Mike Hitchcock. That's what I call him. I know you might not be on a middle name basis with Kenneth Michael Hitchcock. But that's fine.
I didn't realize you were so close.
Yeah, that's fine. Me and Hitch, we go
mustache buddies.
Exactly. Yeah, the bond of it. And actually, interestingly, I was like, well, let's find out what his actual middle name is. According to Wikipedia, it's just the letter S. So
just S? Is it going to be like that Simpsons episode where it's like his middle name is spelled ESS?
No, it's just S. So like Harry S. Truman, where the S stands for S. Who knows?
Interesting.
Ken Hitchcock is a man of many wonders. Let's find that. That's what I really want to know. Opening night press conference. They're playing tonight. I want someone to find out what his middle name is.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't even know what to say, Carl.
Nick's like, you know what?
I'm speechless.
I did a lot of prep for Mike Yeo at this point, and I don't have a lot of Ken Hitchcock middle name comment or content.
You really caught me off guard with that one, but it's okay.
That's what happens when I call him
We're working
Mike.
through it.
But Mike / Ken Hitchcock, was in St. Louis as well. But Mike Yeo, that's the Mike I'm looking for. Obviously, I think it was very obvious that something had to happen because they made a significant amount of moves this offseason, and I thought they were primed to take that next step. But coaching and goaltending are really their Achilles heel at this point.
I mean, they shouldn't be as bad as they are. But, goaltending. I mean, I don't even know if it's coaching. It's coaches live and die by their goaltenders, and St. Louis has had bad goaltending this year.
Yeah, with coaching, I think it's mostly just, and it's to be expected to a degree, just trying to get the line sorted out, right? Like when you bring in a piece like Ryan O'Reilly, you move out enough pieces, trying to find that fit, but it shouldn't take a genius to figure out that you put Ryan O'Reilly with Vladimir Tarasenko. Like that's what you do.
Yeah.
And it took them until this point to figure that out, and I look at that and I'm like, let's not overthink this. You know, they gave them a little bit of time in spring training, but not enough. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, hey, maybe our number one center, our number one winger should play on the same line. Like,
what an idea.
And that's where I look at the coaching and say, you know, don't be so reactionary. And we're 20 odd games into the season, and you should be able to, you try it, not through spring training, or not spring training, but preseason. You try it out, see if it works. Try it into the regular season. But if a line doesn't work the way that you want it to through 2-3 preseason games and you're changing it up when it's your number one center and your number one winger, like, you got to give that more of an effort.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So, like, if you're the Blues, sorry, you had a thought.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If you're the Blues, you said goaltending, biggest issue. What do they do, right? Because Jake Allen, not the Jake Allen that I fell in love with years ago, right? I've fallen out of love with Jake.
Yeah, for good reason. I mean, I just pulled up his stats now. He's performing with an .895 save percentage. But even his career average is a .911. Like, it's not great. It's okay. I guess it's average. But he's done much better in his career. He's just the last few seasons he hasn't been doing it. So what do? I don't know. It's a tough one to trade.
Well, and what are you going to get, right? Like, I saw someone, I have no idea where I saw this. It was somewhere on Twitter, but someone was like, do you do a Corey Schneider for Jake Allen trade? And I'm like, again, that's like a higher profile Ryan for Ryan trade. It's like, these are two struggling goaltenders. What are you going to do, right? I'm not entirely a believer in needing a new situation, right? Like, getting a new situation is not going to help you especially for goaltending, from the mental side of the game. It might, but it probably won't. Like, if you're not playing well and you're not good, you can also not play well in New Jersey.
Yeah, and I don't think New Jersey's blue line is an upgrade to St. Louis's either.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, for sure. St. Louis's blue line is good. Obviously, they have some health issues. Colton Parayko, not exactly at 100% right now. And so he's been missing some time, but as a whole, I'm actually a big fan of St. Louis's blue line. Pietrangelo, obviously a big piece. Parayko, and so, yeah, certainly goaltending. And again, it's not an easy thing to fix halfway through a season either. No,
it's not. I don't know, goalie changes in the middle of the season, you don't see them very often at all. A lot of teams, you're kind of just riding it out. And who's to say that he's not going to turn it around and go on a streak? It happens all the time in the middle of the year. I don't know. I don't know how to help them as a team.
Right. Well, and you look last year, over 59 games, he had a goals saved above average of -10. Not good. Right? This year he's clocking in through 14 games at -6. So he's almost twice as bad as last year when the Blues missed the playoffs, obviously only by 1 point, being knocked out by a little team called the Colorado Avalanche on the last day of the season. But wasn't good enough last year and is somehow worse this year.
Yeah, I don't get the Blues. I really don't. I keep looking at this roster and I'm just confused about why they're not performing better. And part of me is like, it'll even out if you just let it ride itself out. But it's been 2 seasons now, and it hasn't evened itself out.
Right. Well, and same thing, right? Like a lot of people, a big fan of the old PDO stat, and PDO, I believe it from the shooting percentage point of view, right? Like I believe that, Vladimir Tarasenko, he's shooting 8%. I think he could probably do a little bit better. Ryan O'Reilly, he's not going to keep shooting 19% the entire season. Which obviously, myself and most of the other hockey followers said that about William Karlsson all last year. Right? All last year we were like, William Karlsson's not going to shoot this much. The odd time they do, and then the next season comes around and William Karlsson is exactly who we thought he was. So from that side, I believe in shooting percentage will fluctuate. You'll go through stretches where the puck's going in and when it's not. Tarasenko should shoot 10+% for the year. O'Reilly probably, 10-ish.
Yeah.
But the goaltending side of PDO, I believe in much less. Like if you're just bad, you're gonna have a bad save percentage. And so that's something that they're not exactly gonna ride. And, team shooting percentage wise, the Blues aren't that crazy. So, I think if they could get some goaltending, that would help them. They don't have, Chad Johnson has done well for himself. Carter Hutton did well last year, but Chad Johnson's bounced around for a reason. If he was good, someone would hold on to him. Yeah,
totally. And I'm not familiar with the Blues that much. Like, do they have anyone in their system that they're expecting to come up and be their number one guy?
Not from what I can tell. No.
Doesn't look like it.
No, there's no great hope coming.
But the other issue, too, is they've got Jake Allen for another 2 years after this year at over $4 million. Now, they can probably still afford to pick up another goalie in the offseason and still make out okay from a salary cap perspective. But, I mean, Jake Allen's always going to be on your roster for $4.3 million.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, they're in it with Jake Allen. But if there was a goalie that they wanted to go out and pick up, they can. And I would argue that they should. That would be a good pickup there.
100%. But, like, he's 28 years old. Like, goalies are weird, man. You can't predict goalies. Some of them halfway through their career turn it on and put up Vezina caliber seasons. Some of them go on amazing stretches for whatever the Ottawa goalie did a few years ago and bring them into the playoffs. Like, goalies are just weird and unpredictable. Jake Allen certainly had a bad stretch this year, and even last year I'd say he had a bad stretch too, but if he changes just one little thing in his game, it could result in a suddenly plus 900 save percentage.
Exactly. And Craig Berube, who took over as head coach, he took over for the Flyers. They started the season much smaller sample size, but they started 0-4 back when he took over as the Flyers head coach, and he led them to the playoffs. He actually had a very good results with that team. So I think I'm fine with him coming in as the new coach. We will see. I didn't find too much of the old video footage of what his team looked like back in the day, but
I have no idea what to expect of Craig Berube. When I saw that name, I was like, that name looks familiar, but I have no idea who this is.
Yeah. And so, coaching record-wise, a short but quality tenure took the Flyers to the playoffs, and we know that the Flyers are not a team that rides quality goaltending to a playoffs run. And so if he did it with the Flyers, he can do it with the Blues.
It's been a very long time since the Flyers have rode on quality goaltending.
Exactly.
But so am I mistaken in thinking that he was an assistant coach for the Blues this year?
I believe so, yeah.
So, I wonder what or how much they expect to change now with someone who's been on the staff all year, coaching with Mike Yeo. I don't know what they expect him. I don't know what they think that he can bring to the table.
That's fair, yeah. I do always find it interesting that change, but I honestly, partway through the season, especially as an interim coach, I'm fine bringing in a guy who's already been on the bench, right? I'd rather bring in a guy that knows the team, knows the players, knows them well enough that he can put them in a new situation. As long as it's a different perspective, if he's just going to come in and try to run Yo's system, I'd rather that than bring in Willie Desjardins like they did in LA, who has to, learn the nuance of all of his players, figure out which lines he wants to run, and then go from there. Berube is at least acquainted with what he has.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to how much of a shakeup do you want in the locker room.
Yeah, and so we'll see. Obviously, lots of season left to be played. Neither the Oilers or the Blues are out of it. They can both end up in the playoffs at this point if they have, some good players and some good play out of, not Connor McDavid and goaltending. So if you have the rest of the Oilers play well, which is obvious, just a tiny task to ask, and you have some good goaltending, both these teams can be back in there, and their general managers look like geniuses. Although I think the ship has sailed on Chiarelli at this point. I said that, and then I was like, I think if the Oilers make the playoffs, people won't be celebrating him.
I don't know if the ship ever docked, Carl. I think he's been out at sea this whole time.
Just sailing away. Well,
yeah,
that's very fair. There was another trade that happened this week. Someone I am personally a big fan of, Carl Hagelin. He's gone from the Pittsburgh Penguins off to Los Angeles in exchange for Tanner Pearson. And I saw this trade and in my head. I thought, man, this is a terrible trade for the Kings. In a collection of old players coming to LA, they doubled down on it and picked up older Carl Hagelin for younger Tanner Pearson. And the more I looked into it, the less I actually thought that. Am I crazy for thinking that LA actually might have won this deal?
Yes.
All right, cool.
Next topic.
Next. Yeah, let's talk about coaches again.
Honestly, this one to me kind of felt like LA is throwing the towel in. They're going older. they added a little bit of speed to their roster, but I look at this one and you look at the money, and I think this was more of what does Pearson have left on his deal? Another 2 or 3 years of $3 million, something like that. And Hagelin's up after this year. I don't know. If I'm the Kings, I'm not going older. I'm trying to go younger. And obviously they didn't want Tanner Pearson on their roster anymore.
Yeah, they have Tanner Pearson, same money, 3.75 for both the players. But as you said, Pearson has 2 more years on that deal. And honestly, if you look, not at the non-fancy numbers, similar production from both of these players so far this year and, the last number of years. Tanner Pearson was a big part of what this team did for a number of years, though, in LA, struggling so far to start this season. But Hagelin was as well.
Yeah, but you put Pearson now with Sidney Crosby or Malkin or whoever he's playing with. I think it's Malkin. He'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, and I was not concerned about where Tanner Pearson would slot in, because that team, when you, unlike the Blues, where we said put your best players together, the Penguins have for years taken their 3 best players and put them on 3 different lines, which means that you can roll 3 lines. It's very difficult to stop the Penguins team, which is something that for years has made them a difficult team to play against, right? When you've got Crosby,
Absolutely.
Malkin, and Kessel.
We got depth, really good depth.
Yeah. And if you have, each of those guys can carry a line, which is great. That's what you want. And so, yeah, Tanner Pearson will look better on Evgeny Malkin's line than he will with Jeff Carter or with, Anze Kopitar, obviously good in LA, but that wasn't working for them.
But that's why Pittsburgh's going to win this trade, or it's going to look like Pittsburgh won this trade. It's because the offensive output from Tanner Pearson is going to be better than that of Carl Hagelin in LA.
That's every single trade with the LA, or not with the LA Kings, with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It feels like they bring in these guys that are looking for a fresh start, and now you get them into a better situation, and all of a sudden, surprise, they're really good.
Yeah. And name the last trade the Pittsburgh Penguins lost.
Well, they traded away this guy named Marc-Andre Fleury.
Fair.
I guess that wasn't a trade. They should have traded him, but they didn't.
No, they didn't. I think there's a lot of too much respect between those two parties to trade him away. I don't know. I think ultimately the Vegas thing, like, yeah, they asked him to waive, but I think part of it was, it had to be part of Fleury's decision as well.
But yeah,
he had to be okay with it, but
for sure.
Anyways, another topic for another time.
Yes, but I agree. The Pittsburgh Penguins managed to do this, and honestly, I think it'll work because the Penguins have been struggling this year mightily. They're a team in need of a change, of something to kickstart them, and this isn't a huge difference, right? Tanner Pearson, as you said, a different play style, but will fit in well on this team, and you'll be able to have him, perform it and something fresher, something a little bit new, and that just seems like the mode that this team operates under. But their forward core is not the issue at this point.
No, it's not. It never really has been, has it?
I mean, there's years where people try to argue that Sidney Crosby's not good or some garbage like that, but
it's wrong.
Quite
it's
wrong.
Just wrong.
Like they're middle of the pack in goal scoring, which is, you should be, maybe a little bit higher when you have that offensive talent, but when you're trying to make up for the defensive deficiencies, when you have, Justin Schultz go down and you lose him, and then Matt Murray continues to struggle, there's going to be issues.
Yeah, Matt Murray's been a tough one for them. But I feel like we go through this every year with the Penguins. It's October and November, and the Penguins are struggling. And everyone's like, okay, is this the end of the Penguins being one of the best teams in the league? And then Jim Rutherford makes some small potatoes trade like the one he just did. And then suddenly January hits. They go on an amazing 20-game stretch. They get back into the playoffs, and then they go to the second or third round. Like, I don't know. There's something about this team. It's always the second half of the year where they really turn it on.
And that's completely fine. This is not a team that needs to be dominant the entire year, right? They've done that before. They've been there. They know what it takes. And the core of this team has been together for so long and knows what it takes to excel in the playoffs. Obviously this past year notwithstanding, but, you continue to play Washington in the second round and make it to the conference finals. You know what you're doing, right? You know what it takes. And yeah, sure, they didn't get it done this year, but you get there, you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. And by anything can happen in this situation, they win.
Yeah, absolutely. Step one is always just make it to the playoffs. Doesn't matter where you slot in. But you just have to get there, and I think this team knows that. When you have deep playoff runs every year, you get less time to rest and recover, and as these guys get older, they probably need more time to recover, and it results in a slower start to the season for them. It feels like deja vu from last year for me.
Yeah, well, and every, a number of seasons. There's many times where you're looking and you're like, man, like, what are they going to do? Even when, they brought in Mike Sullivan. He was a partway through the season addition.
Yeah, January.
And they went on their run, and Mike Sullivan now, you're looking and you're like, man, he's really good. Which would probably be the same thing that people said about Dan Bilesma when he was a coach, and then he went on to other things, and you're like, you know what? Maybe that team just can carry a coach.
Yeah, I think they absolutely can. It's one of those teams where, it's hard to give the coaches credit, because if you look at the goal scorers on this team, they're going to score goals no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. So
if anything, I think Jim Rutherford deserves a lot of credit for building this kind of core roster and managing it under the salary cap.
Exactly. And not in a way that they've done in Chicago, right? Like they've managed to, they can pick which piece they need to sign, which piece they can move on from, and they seem to, obviously some issues, but they've picked the right pieces, right? They don't have that Brent Seabrook deal on this team.
No.
Chris Letang, the right defenseman to keep around. Obviously bringing in Phil Kessel, a good choice. Matt Murray, are you concerned with Murray? He's been not as good as he has been in the past. Are you concerned with his performance?
Not really. I mean, again, goalies, like, I don't know how to predict goalies. They're tough ones. I'm just pulling up his stats because I haven't followed the Penguins really that much. Oh, yeah, this is bad. This is really bad, Carl. I'm concerned now.
Yeah, it's like a Jake Allen level of concern.
Yeah, it's a little worse than that. Oh, my God.
It's bad.
But he was hurt for a bit, too, wasn't he?
He was hurt, yeah. He's only played, and this is the same thing with goaltending. And this is I think why it's harder to get a read, because sample size is smaller than it is for players, right? Even if you give a player 82 game season, a goalie's going to play 50, 60. If it's a 60 game season, if you're giving a goalie 60 games, you know he's good. You see him, or your team's just so terrible that you're like, we don't care who we're throwing out there. Let's just give the guy we're paying the time to go out there. Which, is the Flames and Mike Smith situation.
Yeah.
And we see how that works. Sample size be what it is. He's played 11 games this year, right? Any player can have a terrible 11 game stretch. And you don't start to ask, if Sidney Crosby has gone that long without scoring a goal before, no one says, well, actually, no, they do say that about Sidney Crosby. But there's, you shouldn't, about a skater, start to ask the question, is this player terrible, right? Like, there's some people who, when Erik Karlsson with his goalless stretch, they say, is Erik Karlsson actually good? And then they look at the underlying numbers and they're like, yeah, like, he's actually fine, right? Like, he'll get his. In the same way that it took Brent Burns 1 million shots to get his first goal, what was it, last year, 2 years ago?
Yep.
In this, Matt Murray, a goaltender, with an injury in the middle of it, can have a bad stretch, can take some time to get going into the season. And that's what I think is happening here. Matt Murray has shown in the past that he is good enough. You can look at the stretch he had of 2 seasons where he was good, or the, 62 games he proved that he was a good goaltender, or the 60 games since then that he's shown that he is not a good goaltender. Now, the difference is there was Marc-Andre Fleury on the team when he was a good goaltender, and that's the only reason that I look at it and say, now that he is the guy, and he has that pressure, and he has that lack of a safety net, he's getting the A team, right? He's not on a back-to-back, he's playing against the good team. He's getting those good starts, so that's the only thing that I would start to be concerned.
Yeah, but this guy came into a playoff run and backstopped them to a Stanley Cup. Like, that's how he entered the league. And then he did it the next year again. Like, he can face the big teams, the tough teams, the best teams, because I think he's proved in his playoff performance that he's done it before. Like, I don't know, he's 24 years old. When do goalies peak? Not till much later, I would think. Yeah. Probably later in their 20s. Like, give him some time to work out the kinks in his game. I'm actually shocked that it's taken this long for him to kind of regress a little bit like this, because the start to his career is unbelievable, the way he entered the league.
Well, the fact that he won 2 Stanley Cups by the time he was eligible for the Calder. Like, by the time his Calder eligible awards ceremony happened, he'd already backstopped 2 Stanley Cups. That's pretty good.
It's good. I mean, that guy could have retired after the second Stanley Cup and called it a career and felt pretty good about himself.
Like, he would have had made no money because they were both on his entry level deal, so he would have had to have milked that $1 million he made those 2 seasons for a while. But accolades wise, he had it. So I hear you. I'm not sounding the alarm. I'm not saying they need to replace Matt Murray by any means, but if there is the potential that I am slightly concerned.
I think long term he'll be fine. Like, maybe you need to find a better backup option. I don't really know who Casey DeSmith is or how good he is, but other than that, because Matt Murray does seem to be a little injury prone. Like, I don't know. Matt Murray will be fine long term.
Yeah, and they've got Tristan Jarry in the A is also
that's right.
A solid upside young goaltender. So we'll see what he can turn into. But again, sample size being what it is very difficult to know.
Absolutely.
Have you heard of you've obviously you live in Toronto. You are inundated with Toronto sports media.
You're going to ask me about William Nylander?
I wasn't going to. No, I was going to go with something that's is less important than William Nylander.
Go for it.
Dart Guy.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with Dart Guy.
You are aware of Dart Guy.
Iconic.
Yeah.
That image.
Now, well, and not even that. Now what? Does he still have a radio show in Toronto somehow?
No, he was recruited by a professional team as a scout, not an NHL team.
Okay.
But he is working in the professional hockey industry as a scout, I believe.
Okay, so there you go, folks. If you want to somehow get a radio show in a major media market and then be hired with a professional hockey organization, just bring a cigarette to the arena and paint your face. That's all it takes.
It's quite the story.
Yeah, but there's a new Dart Guy in town, Nick.
Uh-oh.
There's a new Dart Guy in town.
Who is it?
This weekend, there was a darts tournament. So we're not talking about cigarettes as a dart. We're talking about darts on the, what would you, I guess the dartboard. Darts on the dartboard.
Darts on the dartboard, yeah. I was going to say, don't overthink this one, Carl.
I really, really was. I need you. Gambling, overthinking. Thank you. But he had an interview after his game. You know, why don't we just play it?
Yeah.
Just spoke to Wesley, and besides that, he said you were a class player, and you let him alive in the first session. He said that it was smelly on the stage. Sorry?
I thought Wesley had farted on stage. Yeah. Did he?
No. Well, I think he thinks you did it.
You can there'll be no smell there. I thought he had and I went, that's dirty. It was bad.
It was bad.
It was bad. There was a stink. I thought it was him. And he started playing better. I went, must have needed to get some wind out.
So there you go, Nick. Gary Anderson, very upset at the allegations flying after his match against Wesley Harms, in which Gary said, or Wesley said afterwards, "It'll take me 2 nights to get those smells from my nose." So this is the new Dart Guy, and I think this is the Dart Guy we need. I don't know who, you smelt it, you dealt it is the usual rules that I live by. Darts plays by its own rules.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's also he who denied it supplied it.
That's true.
So
which one do you go by?
I don't know who to believe, Carl.
Yeah, it could be Gary. It could be Wesley. And I'm a little bit sad that Joel isn't able to be here for this conversation, because he was the one that brought this to our attention.
He was very excited about this.
He was quite enthused to be able to have this conversation, but this is not illegal. Obviously there are some rumors of controversy revolving around Gary Anderson in the dart world after this. But there's nothing that says you can't fart during a dart match. The old fart and dart is legal. Which begs the question, what is the worst legal thing you can do in an NHL game? Like, is farting that? Is farting to mess up your opponent one of the worst things that because we've seen players bite fingers and
lick faces.
And that's just Brad Marchand. I can almost guarantee you that Brad Marchand has farted to mess up an opponent at some point in time. That he's had some gas. What to you is the worst thing that you could do during an NHL game?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how smelly farts would be on the ice, just based on how stinky hockey equipment is in general. But I think face washing's pretty gross. I don't know. Brad Marchand really takes the cake with the face licking. I thought that was pretty gross. I also think that Corey Perry is a master of this stuff. The way he will mess with his opponents by squirting water in the gloves. I don't know. I think that stuff's funny, but I don't think farting's that bad on the ice.
No, I have had, at least on the bench, there have been certainly times where you smell something and you're like, get out of there on the ice, right? And so yeah. I think from a gas point of view, you're hurting your teammates more so if you have that bean burrito before the game than you are the opponents.
PK Subban has said that he will hold his farts until he gets in front of the opponent's net and then let them go to mess with the goalie.
Oh, the goalie can't leave, right? And that's the thing. Everyone else
can't leave.
Everyone else can skate around. That goalie's not. Maybe that's why every goalie, you see them during whistles. They skate from one side of the ice to the other. Maybe they skate off to the corner, let one go, and then skate back. That must be the reason. We figured it out.
Leaving one there for the ref.
Yeah, or like just that super. They're on the road and there's just a super annoying fan in the corner. Just leave that for them. Enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let it waft through the camera lens hole.
Exactly. Yeah. I would see farting during the game not the worst thing. I think face licking is next level though.
That's next level. That's the one thing that like you never thought would happen until it happens.
I'll think back to, and again, as a player, I do not have much respect for what he does, but it's the same thing, right? Brad Marchand, creative, does these things. The Sean Avery, I don't know why it took until Sean Avery did it, where he stood in front of Brodeur and waved his arms.
Oh, yeah.
And again, the next day they came out with a rule like, yeah, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Like, how did it take that long for someone to just be like, why don't I just do this? Right? Why don't screening the goalie's legal? Why don't I just super screen the goalie?
Yeah, right? And why did they change that rule? Like, what is wrong with them doing that?
Yeah. It looks ridiculous, but like, you can do that in every sport, right? You're inbounding a pass in basketball. You see them standing there doing that exact same thing, trying to block them from getting it in. That's legal in every other sport, not hockey.
Just goes to show you the power that Martin Brodeur had when he played in the league.
That's another thing that Martin Brodeur ruined. We could have had people waving their arms. Brodeur complains. Rule gets changed. Thanks a lot, Martin.
Yeah, Martin.
Jeez.
I don't hate him that much.
Well,
that was just void of any feeling.
But I think something like that, if legal, that doesn't fall in the lines of legal, I think something like that, like an intentional way of distracting. How do you feel about because we've seen it in baseball. You don't hear as much mic'd up hearing the players on the ice as you do in some other sports. But like the fake calling for the pass. How do you feel about that?
I do that every week.
Right. Well, exactly. What happens, right? It's happening all the time. It happens in beer league. It happens in the pros. So obviously you're pro fake call for the pass.
It's absolutely. It's the laziest thing you can do on the ice. Right. Because it's just like, I'm too tired to skate up and just take the puck from him, so I'll try and pretend. Or
you're the trailing guy and you're just smacking the stick on the ice, calling for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, why not? Yeah. Absolutely. If you can trick the other guy like that,
whatever it takes.
For sure. Whatever it takes.
And if they're gonna make that no look draw pass to Nick on the other team, perfect.
Yeah.
I honestly think if it's within the rules, I am very okay of finding those things. I think face licking crosses that line. So like
a little bit.
I'm not for biting. I'm not for licking. I think you shouldn't put another player with no. I'm not saying that.
No, go ahead. Finish that thought.
But I was gonna say you shouldn't put another player in your body, which is a fair rule. I think that crosses the line, right? And I think licking someone also falls within that. So,
I think so.
So I think
that's a little
licking is the worst thing. That would be the NHL equivalent of farting and darts.
Yeah, I think we figured it out, Carl.
But in this case, you do know at least who dealt it, right? Like, there's no arguing that that's your tongue. You can't hide it.
There's no he said that in this one.
No, exactly. That is 100% a thing. Hey, do you want to pick a winner?
Do I want to pick a winner? Absolutely.
All right, let's pick a winner. High sticking. It's a game we play, and we wrapped up this session. Obviously, this episode coming out on a Tuesday, a day later than we usually do. We had a crazy weekend here at the old Fourth Line Industries. And so we're coming out on a Tuesday, but that doesn't stop us. And there's only one game tonight. Did you really want to pick like a big number for the Oilers? And they're going to win their first game. So everyone would have picked the Oilers, and they would have lost, and we would have handed out 2 high sticking points, and it would have just been ridiculous. So we're not doing that. We're going to pick some Pavel Bure must-watch games coming up here. But first, we're going to pick the winner. There were a total... There was 30-odd people in the pool, people who played ice sticking, over on our Twitter, at Fourth Line Podcast. We actually drew the name beforehand, and this is, I know Joel is going to complain. He's going to. There is no rhyme or reason. Well, we rank the people in order of score. All right, so we order them in terms of score. We assign, so if you have 20 points, well, Scott and Rod, actually, they tied with the first number of points, 22 apiece. And Scott was first because the way it works in sorting, whoever has points last or the most points last is first. It's just the way it works. Because like I sort to grab the ones to put on Twitter, the names for Twitter, and then I sort by total points. That's just the way it works. So the person that who wins was actually tied with Joel. There was 2 individuals with 6 points. If Joel had have been ahead of this individual, he would have won. But he didn't.
Oh boy.
So congratulations to Ben Ferguson, winner of this session of high sticking. You well deserved, Ben. Well deserved.
Well done, Ben. Well done. Joel will be sending you a personalized congratulations note as soon as he finds out.
Most certainly, that will be the case. And so none of us won this time, but we'll be resetting this time. And the way it works is we pick our must-watch games every day of the week for the NHL season, and you pick who you think is going to win the game and the score of the game. If you pick the score right, the winner right, you get 3 whole points. If you just pick the winner, no score, you get 1 point. If you're somewhere in the middle, you get 2. So that's where we're sitting at. We're going to pick our must-watch games of the week. We're going to start, obviously, with Wednesday night. Nick.
Lots of games.
Well, when you only have 1 game on a Tuesday, Wednesday's a full one.
Yeah, what is up with their schedule this year? So weird. All right, what do we got? What do we have that's interesting? There's the Battle of New York. There's the Battle of Florida.
There's the original 6 matchup. Boston, Detroit.
Yeah, but we've got a rule on this show, Carl.
I was just listing things that are happening. There's Craig Berube makes his St. Louis Blues debut.
Yeah, against the Preds.
I know what I think I would pick.
Pick it.
I would go Winnipeg and Calgary, I believe. It's a late game, and so I know Nick's not going to be staying up and watching that. It starts at 10 o'clock Eastern time, but that's what I would be picking, Calgary and Winnipeg.
I'll watch like half the first period.
Well, that's my Avalanche are in LA that week night, so that'll similarly go.
Yeah, no, I like that game. I think that'll be a good one.
Do we want... So, we missed a day here. There's a big slate. There's then no games on Thursday. American Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, America.
Happy Thanksgiving, yeah.
So they, they're like, go watch your football, go watch your college basketball, do not watch hockey today. Don't you dare watch NHL games with your family. You are going to be watching hockey or football. So that's what they decided. So that's
the NHL just knows they're going to get killed. Like, no, we do not want to compete.
Exactly.
On this day.
But here's the thing. So Black Friday coming up on Friday. We have a large slate of afternoon games and then some evening games. Do we want to pick 2? Do we want an afternoon game and an evening game on Friday to make up for the lack of games on Tuesday? No game Thursday.
Oh, yeah, we do.
All right.
That's a great idea.
Nick's in on that. What's the early game that you're loving? I know, obviously, your Red Wings in Washington. What is it with your... We'll talk about that later, but they're actually respectable.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to jinx it, but they're looking okay right now. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do we see... There's Edmonton Anaheim in the afternoon. Is that Randy Carlyle's last game? Like, if you lose to the Oilers, the Blues lost to the Kings and Mike Yeo got fired. That could be a great. If you lose, this is how it works for the rest of the season. If you lose to a team that's already fired a coach, you have to fire your coach. Those are the rules. I don't make them up. I just play by them.
I think you just made that one up. it's a good afternoon game here. Detroit Washington's one I'll be watching already. I do have to work on Friday, but I may have the Rangers game on in the background.
Let's go with the Red Wings and the Caps.
All right, let's watch Ovechkin destroy Jimmy Howard.
Absolutely. And then, it's the second of a back-to-back. I'm feeling Nashville, St. Louis. It could be terrible. It could be terrible, but that's my thoughts for a Friday night game.
I like it. The battle of the region of the United States that you've never been to.
Right. The battle of the middle. I've been to one side and a corner. And everything else is a mystery to me.
That's funny. All right. So Saturday, another big slate of games.
I've technically picked all three games so far, so I'm gonna leave this in your very capable hands.
I think Columbus-Pittsburgh's always a good game.
It is a very good and like a shocking rivalry at this point.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So let's go Columbus at Pittsburgh.
All right. There's only 4 games on Sunday, and none of them are super thrilling. We have Nashville gonna trounce the Ducks. We have Edmonton and LA. We have Calgary in Arizona in the afternoon, and New Jersey and Tampa.
I'd go New Jersey and Tampa.
I would also go New Jersey and Tampa, especially, we didn't talk about it today, but the Andre Vasilevsky injury, they're going to be rolling through Louis Domingue there in Tampa, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Brings us to Monday. Let's pick a Monday game as well. My eye, again, a smaller slate on Monday because the schedule's all broken. 5 games on Monday. My eye goes to the Washington Capitals traveling into Barry Trotz's new land.
I like it.
On the island. Caps Isles is our Monday game. So we've got a couple Capitals games this week. And I think that's the only repeat. I could be mistaken. The rest are all fresh.
I think you're right. And this is what happens when Joel's not on the show. We didn't pick a single Leafs game.
Well, here's the thing. Because the Leafs, they play Boston.
Yeah.
So that's not happening, right? They play Boston on Saturday night. No. When did they play?
Monday.
They play Boston on Monday. So that's not happening. And so anytime that happens, you're a little less likely to play the Leafs. Their Saturday game,
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Not that exciting.
Not that thrilling. So we'll see. Anyways, this is our high sticking slate. So hopefully we made it last week. Turns out we made it very confusing because no one could figure out which game. There's some folks who listen and then send in all their picks at once, which is great. That's fine. Just send it into our Twitter. Just send us the whole slate. No one who did that could figure out who we actually picked on Saturday. Hopefully we made it a little bit clearer today who we picked when. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the America. If you want to send us some turkey, just send us a DM. We'll send you our addresses. And, Nick, do you like white or dark meat?
I like dark meat.
I like white meat. We are the perfect pair. You can send it to us and, we will share appropriately. So
just make sure you include gravy in that envelope.
I was thinking
the post office will appreciate it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back next week. Before we wrap up, let's remind everyone about the Alberta Podcast Network, a great collection of shows over there, and a place that you should tune in. Even if you're not from Alberta, if you're from Alberta, you should especially do it. Like if you're listening, you're like, yeah, I want to know more, because there is a fantastic amount of things to learn more about this great province. Nick, I know it has been some time since you have been in Alberta.
Yeah, it's been a couple years, maybe year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, and honestly, since the last time I was in Ontario, it would have been probably like 6 or 7 years since I was last there. So,
oh wow!
So I'm even worse than you. I flew through the Toronto airport, if that counts.
It doesn't.
Okay, well,
that's Mississauga.
Well, there you go. I flew through Mississauga. I flew through Hamilton as well. Also not Toronto.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
That is a terrible airport. If you've ever had to fly through the Hamilton airport, I couldn't even get a sandwich. What kind of an airport doesn't let you buy a sandwich?
That's Hamilton for you.
Yeah, don't go there. But anyways, yeah. if you want to learn more, so Nick, it's been a few years. If you want, I forgot what my point was here. It's been a few years for you. If you forget what it's like in Alberta and you want to learn more, head to the Alberta Podcast Network, because there's shows telling you stories about what's happening here. You want to know the political climate, which is always interesting. We voted against the Olympics. That's a thing that's happened in Alberta.
Very exciting.
I'm a fan of that. So, check that out. You can check out some of what's happening in the arts community, the culinary world. Head over to the Alberta Podcast Network for more great shows like this one. I know we just called ourselves a great show, but that's fine. You've been listening this far. If you've been listening
at least someone is.
Right. That's what you get at this point in time. And which I always enjoy. One of my favorite things about saying, no one listens, is everyone who tweets us, I'm listening. I listen to the end. It's me. So thank you for listening to the end. We appreciate if you listen to the end. If you just start in the middle and only listen to 3/4, that's fine too. If you start in the middle and listen to 3/4, I actually really want to talk to you, because your math is really good. So thank you for tuning in. You can find us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast, thefourthlinepodcast.com, where I know, Nick is obviously a big piece of Wings Nation, and he's always has fantastic Red Wings content.
Oh, thank you.
And we tried our hand at fantastic Red Wings content this week, and I feel like we've got it nailed down. We have the Patrick Waugh to Andrew Raycroft scale of worry for players. Mike Laybourne came out with one for Detroit Red Wing coaches. And so you can head over there and check that out, see what he has. So
it's a very good piece, and I want you all to go read it.
Well, there you go. And that's coming from the Detroit Red Wings expert. So head over there at fourthlinepodcast.com, mail out the Fourth Line Podcast, and until next week.
I miss you, Joel.